The mysterious Krorks. There are only a few lines written about them, right? This is true, but we can draw a parallel to what they might have been using the S-tier orc form we see during the War of the Beast. Let me enlighten you as to how devastating the Krorks could have been. So welcome heretics to another 40k video as we stare into the timeless depths of the warp, where all stories are already written. Now witness 40k heretical knowledge. Let's touch on a thread of what we know before we see their true might. So when Fabius meets Trazen, that is the laddest orc I've ever seen, Savona murmured, staring up at a towering 12-metre tall monstrosity that loomed in a nearby nook, and his weaponry. The frozen creature wore a crude exoskeleton far in advance of anything the orcs now might conceive of. Indeed, from his initial examination, Fabius suspected that it might be in advance of his own battle plate. So big and smart, and of course, they were made by the Old Ones to help fight the Satan during the War in Heaven. I think when the Orcs are challenged, like something as big as a War in Heaven, the Necrons, the Satan, etc., the Krorks could return, like the Hulk finding his Worldbreaker form, and this potential is dormant in them, I believe. The big wag that kicks off the War of the Beast is put into place because the Beast wants revenge for the Orcs' suffering and humiliation at the hands of the Imperium when they were beaten at Anar. And over this rough-to-read series of novels, the Imperium, at great cost, does manage to hold them off most of the time. So how big were these Orcs? Ducking into the chamber, the Beast of Anar entered the throne room. The towering orc loomed and looked down at the Imperial fists. It stared at the Space Marines with Thane at their head. Thane thought he saw a look of disdain on the great beast's face. It was huge, like a death-world reptile that had grown so large it had no natural predators. Green muscle, mounds of fur, plates of black and white armour as thick as a gargan's hull. Like its palace, the beast's brutish form crackled with defence fields and protective shielding. With colossal claws wreathed with green fire, it lifted a great horned helm from its head to reveal the tusked and scar-mangled horror of its face. Eyes that burned with doom, monstrous fangs too large and warped for its massive jaws, green skin cracked with age and scarring. On top of all this, and the fact it's probably going to beat down all these Marines, it can also speak in High Gothic. So that's the biggest of them, and it only goes down from there, but they're still massive. So let's look at their technology, which is one of my favourite things in the books. What can they bring to bear for that? They moved around in orc attack moons, which travel by dipping into subspace to travel rather than using the warp like many of the other races in 40k. Then when they emerge in these attack moons and pop back into the Imperium, there are effects on the area where it emerges. Before a moon appeared, it would affect nearby planets, messing with their gravity like Ming the Merciless, causing the surface of the planet to be torn up. When it had fully emerged from its rabbit hole, the moon would need to charge up again. This low-rent Unicron moon would power up by shattering and eating the worlds nearby using a tractor beam, which locks onto something in space and draws it towards it. With this, the moon would tear off chunks of the planet to have a munch on. It also had what is equivalent to a flat-screen TV on its surface, a massive one. Yes, even bigger than the one in your bedroom. The moon's surface can be used to project the image of the beast like a big phone screen, and it will be able to move in sync with the words of the speaker, even at that scale. So no running around with a mobile trying to find that receptive, sweet signal spot. Now the moons themselves were simply a disembarking point for the Orcs, who come out of the subspace tunnel within the moon, letting out wave after relentless wave of Orc warships to come out to play and rain down their orky goodness on the planets they are targeting. The super weapon of this thing is a gravitic whip. Slanesh and Dark Eldar players getting feverish? Calm down, it's not that sort of thing. This gravity weapon can wreck squads of Imperium cruisers and even give a good structure-breaking bash to the battleships. And what does it do when it meets these worlds? Let's go to a few quotes to deal with this. Praxides Prime was one of the first recorded worlds to experience the attack moon's gargantuan weapons. Gravity beams struck the shrine world's surface, chewing through the sovereign city-states and tearing temples, basilicas, and cathedrals violently skywards. Light years away, Port Oberon, a fleet-based planet situated near a busy subsector nexus, was pulverized. Colossal rocks, meteorites, and planetary chunks vomited forth from gaping launch craters in the pockmarked surface of the materializing attack moon, smashed through station sentry cruisers and fleeing merchant shipping. The worst was to come, however. As well as rocketing projectiles and graviton beams, as if that wasn't enough, the attack moons unleashed plagues of ramshackle gunships, salvage hulks and rammers that enveloped escaping vessels in a web of grapnels and gunfire. Survivors on victim worlds climbed out from the wreckage of demolition cities, their eyes fixed on the slaughter above and the attack moons glowering down on them. They watched until their skies grew black with the swarms of descending rocks, landers and greenskin capsules. Oblivion beckoned. So we can see with their mastery of large-scale tractor beams, gravity and of course popping in and out of subspace, not to mention the giant TV screen they have on their wall, the size of the ships themselves, etc., the potential the Orks have within their DNA. Imagine what the Krorks were capable of. Now, the attack moon was not just thrown together. There was great science behind their building. A gravity nexus would be built in orbit around the planet and also down on the surface, and it would send the chunks from the ground to orbit to be shaped like plasticine into the chassis of the attack moon, a technological equivalent of a space elevator. The attack moon wants breakfast, so vast glowing beams of energy were projecting down onto the surface of Adamantua. Within seconds, they could see something dark and blotchy flowing up the beams into the attack moon. Heth ramped up the magnification. It was rock, planetary matter. The attack moon was aiming immense gravity beams at the planet and harvesting its mass, sucking billions of tons of physical matter and mineral content from the crust and mantle. It also fires some chunks at nearby Imperial ships. There were many battles during the War of the Beast, so we will focus on when the Orks were able to get some advantage over the Imperium with their shiny new tech toys. The flat areas, chosen as landing grounds by their forces, had in fact been the covers to immense silos of anti-ship guns and missiles. Not just physical missiles targeted the orbiting fleet of the Imperium, powerful gravitic manipulators were turning ships inside out, pulling them down to fiery deaths in the atmosphere, or tossing them into deep space. Strangely pulsating green rays sliced warships in two, while cluster missiles engulfed descending dropships. I like the green ray blasts, that's very on brand for the Orks. Only red would have been faster. But yes, they engulfed descending drop ships with thousands of detonations. Another example is at Port Sanctus, where the Orks displayed their ability with teleports. They cozied up in raider-sided. Just listening back to the audio, I'll jump in here. I meant to say they cozied up in raider-sized vessels and then teleported their warriors onto Imperial ships, even getting through void shields with it. Another effort saw Imperial forces manage to get onto the surface of the attack moon. Due to their large numbers, they were able to penetrate the shields in various spots. But as they're about to get into the moon itself, the same tech used to project an Ork's face onto the surface was used in a more cruel way, a devastating way. The Orks manipulated the terrain to create a mountain which is used to crush the entire invading army. So let me know what your thoughts are on the lore and how it may apply to the Krorks. Obviously going up a few levels from what we get with these Orks during the War of the Beast. I do think it shines some light on the potential of the Krorks during the War in Heaven. Let me know what you think, comment down below.